Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And today I want to do a true story episode about Rock in Rio and Guns N' Roses history with the actual festival. So in Duff's book, he talks a bit about the gigs in Brazil. So Guns N' Roses, had released Appetite for Destruction back in '87, and then they released GNR Lies in 1988. And they hadn't yet released the Illusions records. They were still working on them, and this was in January of '91, and the Illusions records weren't coming out until September of '91. So Duff even asked himself, is anyone going to show up for our gigs in Brazil? Sure, the promoter told us the gigs would sell out, but this was just his word. We had long since learned that a promoter's word wasn't always a solid piece of currency. ANZ Stadium was the biggest in the world. Frank Sinatra had played there, Paul McCartney had played there, Pope John Paul II played there. But us, we had played fewer than half a dozen gigs in the past 2 years, and our one and only proper album had come out nearly 4 years ago. Headlining 2 nights in South America, really? I started to hit the bottle harder, which meant taking more Coke, which allowed me to drink harder, which meant more Coke. Up to that point, I had always thought I would address my drinking someday. Even if it had always been a lie, it exerted an element of control, and there was a horizon. Right then after recording the Illusions records, that horizon went dark. I lost all sense of orientation. Then on January 17th, 1991, we boarded an American Airlines jet bound for Rio. This would be one of the longest flights I'd ever taken. A plane is a mental tube with no way out, and I'd always been claustrophobic. When I flew home to see my family and friends in Seattle, I had to pay for someone else to come with me. Because of my panic attacks, I couldn't even contemplate heading to the airport alone. I self-medicated with whatever was available. For the flight to Rio, I took bundles of Coke to snort in the airport lounge so I could stay upright and shuffle down the jetway. I was terrified. The flight, the gigs, the band, the flight, the gigs, the band. Fear, doubt, Valium, stewardess, vodka, please, out. So on the plane ride to Brazil, the actual captain came on the intercom and told the band members and their entourage that U.S. forces have begun bombing Iraq in Operation Desert Storm and that America was at war. To which Duff replied, "What the F?" I started to worry about our reception in Rio. Would we be greeted as American warmongers? I was just hoping to get to the hotel and duck into my room unnoticed. Again, is anyone going to show up for these gigs? As we began our descent, I was exhausted from the constant to and fro of getting plastered and coming to again, from trying to get a hold of huge quantities of alcohol from the flight crew to quell my panic. We taxied in and I staggered off the plane bleary-eyed. I felt like a effing Martian after traveling for so long and feeding my body with mind-numbing intoxicants. What are all these people doing here? Why are they screaming? A crowd of 8,000 fans greeted us at the gate. I was overwhelmed. They were overjoyed. We shuffled out to a van. Lots of security guys in and around the vans. Machine guns, really? Hotel nowhere near some famous beaches. Swank hotel for sure, but perched just below the city's most infamous favela. So Guns N' Roses played 2 nights at ANZ Stadium, one of which was actually broadcast live on TV, and you can watch the whole concert on YouTube. So 175,000 people and a river of sewage streaming right through the place, an actual river of shit according to Duff McKagan. People chanting Guns N' Roses, Guns N' Roses. The audience cried and sang along to every word as we launched into our set. Effing hell, there are a lot of people up here on stage. We had 2 keyboard players, backup singers, and horn players. The sides of the stage swarmed with the crew and management, and who else knows. Now, there's also a documentary on YouTube that maybe you guys haven't seen called 7 Days in Rio, which actually captures Guns N' Roses' concert that they played at Rock in Rio in 1991. I've linked to it down below for you guys to go check out. Now, the concerts in Rio were also special because it was Matt Sorum and Dizzy Reed's first live performances as band members. Now, here's what Axl and Dizzy had to say about playing Rock in Rio.
A lot of people down here don't know English, and they can still sing all the songs and everything. Like Sweet Child, they sing every chorus with me. It's so much fun.
Axl would try to talk to the people, in between songs, and you could tell, having maybe difficulties understanding. But when it came to the songs, they were right there.
Was your first live date with them was Rock in Rio?
My first live show with Guns N' Roses was Rock in Rio.
What was that like?
It was like a blur. I was like, man, I can't believe this. I would be like completely lying and ridiculous if I said I wasn't nervous for that.
Yeah.
But actually, it's weird. After doing it, I look back at it, and we did the little show in LA, and like 500 people were there that I knew, at least, And that was like a lot scarier than doing Rock in Rio, because Rock in Rio is just, you just get kind of numb, because there's just so many people. You're just kind of numb. It's like, it's like doing like Novocaine over your whole body. You just play. Wow.
So Guns N' Roses' first show in Brazil was on January 20th, 1991. Their second one was on January 23rd, 1991. Now, what's funny is nobody knew where Axl Rose was. In fact, the question was being asked before the band's first performance on January 20th. So a few days before the show, all of the members of Guns N' Roses were seen arriving at the airport in Rio de Janeiro, except for the lead singer. And the mystery continued until the 19th of January, a day before their first show. So Axl finally arrived in Brazil on the same flight as the band Faith No More, but it was said that he stayed to himself and didn't talk to anyone. And his unpredictability put a lot of people on the edge, but in the end, it was 2 great shows that Guns N' Roses did. So at Guns N' Roses' first show in Rio de Janeiro at Rock in Rio, they debuted some songs that fans hadn't previously heard, including Pretty Tied Up. They also played Double Talk and Jive. They also debuted You Could Be Mine, and they also debuted Dead Horse as well as Estranged. And during Estranged, Axl told the crowd, "This will be the first time I've sang the song in a happy mood." And he also told the crowd it's the first rehearsal for him in 2 years. Now, the second show that they did at Rock in Rio, they debuted another song which they hadn't played the previous night, which was Bad Apples. And that would actually be the only time that they would perform Bad Apples live. And prior to playing Civil War, Axl dedicated the song to all the soldiers fighting in the Persian Gulf as part of the Gulf War. Now, Duff reflected back on the Rock in Rio gigs. He said the shows in Rio should have marked the triumphant beginning of a new phase in history of the band, but instead it felt like Guns N' Roses had somehow changed from the band into a traveling extravaganza in which we just played a more and less independent role. We had added more people to the band, but there was much less sense that we were a unit of any kind, big or small. During that trip to Brazil, I somehow felt completely alone and alienated even in my own band. I loved Guns N' Roses. I loved all the members of Guns N' Roses, including the new guys, but something still felt terribly wrong. I drank every day prior to Rock in Rio, but I could still pull myself out of the times and curtail my drinking. The shows in Rio were the beginning of a 3-year headlong dive into drugs and booze, the darkest days of my life. For me, there was a difference between drinking half a gallon of vodka a day and drinking a quart or a liter. A liter was pretty much good. Beginning in Rio, I drank half a gallon a day every day. So let's talk about Rock in Rio 3. So 10 years almost from the day that Guns N' Roses played Rock in Rio 2, they returned to Brazil to play Rock in Rio 3. But it was a much different lineup this time around. Slash and Duff, Matt Sorum were all gone. The only returning members would be Axl and Dizzy Reed. So on January 14, 2001, Guns N' Roses created a ruckus with the debut of enigmatic guitarist Wizard Buckethead, replacements bassist Tommy Stinson, and former Primus drummer Brian Mantia at Rock in Rio 3. And this was even a bigger crowd than what Guns had played even before. The crowd was estimated to be around 250,000 people. So the show was about 2 hours or so, and Guns N' Roses mainly focused on familiar favorites. They also included 3 songs from the forthcoming Chinese Democracy album. Now, early on in the set, when Guns N' Roses are playing It's So Easy, Axl actually has a fan kicked out who was apparently wearing a Guns N' Roses Slash t-shirt and had been taunting Axl. After Mr. Brownstone, Axl speaks through a translator that many of the fans are disappointed that past band members are not currently in the band. He says that ex-band members did everything they could so that Axl couldn't be here today, and Axl says, F that. Axl also tells the crowd that he is hurt and that unlike Oasis, Axl and his former bandmates couldn't find a way to get along. Now, after Paradise City, Axl tells the crowd he has been taken care of by a Brazilian family, more specifically Beta, his assistant, and her 3 children for the last 6 or 7 years. He says that she's been a mother and a manager to him and that she's helped everyone in the band. Beta was also the translator for the night. Axl then told the crowd that the band will be back next summer with a bunch of new songs. So the entire Rock in Rio 3 concert's also available to watch on YouTube. I've linked to it down below. And then fast forward 10 years later, Guns N' Roses played Brazil once again at Rock in Rio. And this is definitely one of the low points in Guns N' Roses' career. It was not a very good concert for them. It rained a lot. Axl's voice was not sounding very good. And even Bumblefoot came out and said that Rock in Rio in 2011 was his worst show ever. Now, I've linked to the interview down below where Bumblefoot talks about it. He talked about how he was wearing a Star Wars mask and it actually stuck to his face and he had trouble getting it off. Now, also at the 2011 show, Guns N' Roses took the stage very late, so they released a statement saying Guns N' Roses would like to set the record straight on Rock in Rio. The festival's inadequate production and the downpour of rain delayed the event. Anyone who was there knows that System of a Down did not leave the stage until close to 1:15 in the morning. System's extensive stage production did not finish coming off stage till 1:45 a.m. Guns N' Roses production was up and ready to go at 2:15 a.m. Axl Rose got to the venue before 1 a.m. and he came ready to go on stage. The inadequate cover of the Rock in Rio stage caused further delay when the soundboard went down due to water damage and was replaced as quick as possible. GNR walked on stage at 2:40 a.m. and played 2.5 hours in the pouring rain. GNR would never seek to intentionally disrespect anyone, especially their fans. Now, there's a whole video dedicated to Axl Rose's struggling performance in 2011. He got lost during the song November Rain. He also seems pretty frustrated during the song Patience as well. And the entire concert, just like the other two Rock in Rio shows, is available to watch online. Hopefully the 2017 Rock in Rio that Guns are playing at will also be available to watch online. So that does it for my recap of the shows. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Did any of you guys go to Rock in Rio from any of those 3 concerts that Guns played at? Comment down below and let me know. And as always, guys, make sure you subscribe for all things related to Guns N' Roses. And if you just love Guns N' Roses and want to see more videos like this, and follow me on social media and support my channel on Patreon. The links to those channels are down below. Take care.